Hi, I'm Linda Plunkett. I live in North Carolina, and I'm author of Living a Positive Life in a Negative World. When asked to share about my childhood or an incident from my childhood, I like to show a picture. This is a huge memory for me. I actually grew up in a family business. My father owned a produce market, and I worked in his business from the time I was 9 years old until I was 18. Just to give you an example of a normal day, I usually get up around 8 in the morning. I love having a quiet time to start the day. It gets me centered. I do a little reading, I do a little prayer, and then after that I enjoy going for a walk. I usually walk 1 mile to 2 miles, and that way my body gets pumped up. I have breakfast, and I'm ready to go. After that, my email, my business, and I go into a little bit of writing after that. When asked about my favorite hobby, I'd have to say it's dancing. I've been doing ballroom dancing for really over 15 years now, and people say, why? Why that? That's kind of a complicated question. One of the main reasons for me is that I had a brain surgery, and because of the brain surgery, it helps tremendously with my balance and coordination, but it's also fun, it's challenging, and I'm learning new things all the time, which I love. It keeps me very active, and with dancing, not only you can do parties, events, you can do competitions, there's all types of opportunities, so those would be the reasons I really love it. I love to travel, and I've loved to travel for a long time. At one point I was in college and wanted to go to Europe, and my parents said, we can't afford to sell your car. So I think they were in shock, but I literally sold my car so I could go study in Europe a semester. And that's really where my love of travel started, but now I've traveled around the world. I believe I've been on every continent but Antarctica. I love to travel in Europe. Every country is so different, the culture is so different. But I must say one of my favorite trips was when I cruised from Hawaii to Australia. And so I got to go through French Polynesia, New Zealand to Australia, and that is probably my favorite trip that I've ever taken. Well, it's interesting how I became a writer. People always say, Linda, you know, how did you become a writer? And when I really never intended to write a book. But honestly, back in 2012, I survived a major brain surgery and had a near-death experience, had an episode happen where a major medical clinic said, there's nothing we can do for you. And people said, your story encourages and inspires me. Please write a book. People asked me to write the book. So the first book came out of those instances. And then the second book, which basically was just published a couple years ago, Living a Positive Life in a Negative World, I have kind of a similar story to that. It was a lot of pain and suffering during a time. People said, Linda, you're doing better than we are. We know you're going through a really hard time. Please tell us how you're getting through this. So I wrote that book, really body, soul, and spirit. I had issues in all three areas. And so people have come back to me and thanked me because I think we all need encouragement. We're all going through hard times, and so those were really the reasons that I ended up writing the 2 books, just to help people, to encourage people, and to try to let them know not to give up, but to keep going. One experience that was transformative in my journey personally was when I had to make a really hard decision. A major medical institute said to me, Linda, there's nothing we can do for you. I had to make a decision. Was I going to give up? And I could have given up, and I feel like if I had given up, I would not be here right now. And people say to me, my life is a miracle. I believe it is a miracle, but I had to make the decision that I was going to try to fight through and find answers when I really wasn't given any hope. I think the way that I offer tools with my education and my experience is a little different than most counselors, and many people have shared with me that what I do is different. I've had so many negative experiences personally that I do share how I have overcome things. Yes, I can teach people what I've learned in a book, and I've read many books. I have a PhD in psychology. But having said that, I believe people identify with me because I share my own journey, the fact my own life has not been perfect. And what have I done to make my own life better? I'm really one of them, and that's what makes me different, I think. When I answer the question regarding tools for everyday life, I do want to explain that my book is in 3 sections, body, soul, and spirit. So I want to give you a little bit of information from each section. And the first section has to do with finding new strategies for a better body and brain. And also that particular chapter, which is chapter 7, deals with eating. People have no idea how much eating influences your overall outlook, your body, what we eat. People say what you are what you eat. But there's a lot of truth to that. When we eat the wrong food or we drink the wrong beverages, it can have a huge impact. So I have tools in chapter 7 that I talk about what to eat, what not to eat, what to drink or not, to have a better body and a better brain. That will help you become a better, more positive person. I want to select a different chapter in the second section. Chapter 10, which is about making personal changes in your life, your body, soul, and spirit. And that's about banishing bitterness. People say, why am I bitter? Or why is someone else bitter? 9 times out of 10, as a psychologist, I can tell you is that they have regrets and they have issues many times regarding forgiveness. So it may need you need to forgive yourself, you need to forgive other people, or in some cases even forgive God, which I know is somewhat controversial, but I have found that to be true, that bitterness is usually at the root of other issues. And then the third section, spiritually, being a more positive person. And this section is not maybe for some people as popular, but I'm very honest in that we can all have issues with God. Some people say, oh, if you have enough faith, you shouldn't have issues with God. I would disagree with that. Anybody that goes through really hard times, maybe you say, my prayers haven't been answered, or I felt God wasn't there when I needed them. You're being honest. God knows your heart. He knows your innermost parts. So what I like to tell people is just be honest, but be open to God and allow God to be a part of your life, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Yeah, I had to struggle and did research and found out famous people like Mother Teresa and people that were famous missionaries, they had issues with God too. And I felt like I was the only one that had issues, but it's not true. But people, if they're honest with themselves, instead of getting mad at God, just talk to him, be open. Well, when I talk about balancing my personal life with everything else, I have to be completely honest in that I don't always get it right. For me, I grew up in a working family. My parents worked many hours, but I've realized, especially as I'm getting older and in wanting to take care of myself, to live to a longer age and do all the activities I love to do, I need to give myself more time out. So I'm gradually taking more time for things like giving myself a massage or having a massage, allowing myself to go on a trip. Recently, I went on a 3-day cruise. I think a lot of us that are very motivated and accomplishing a lot, we forget that we're important. If we don't take care of ourselves personally, we're not going to be able to do our jobs as well. And so I think it is very, very important to have quiet time for yourself, vacation time, but maybe even on a daily basis, giving yourself a few minutes just to relax. I enjoy walking and I enjoy dancing, and I think both of them are great forms of exercise. I just wanted to give you a few statistics from my book about people that actually studied these things. There was a doctor at the University of Wisconsin School of Medicine who basically stated that exercise is the full package, and this includes walking and doing other forms of exercise, but walking in particular makes the heart beat faster, it increases blood flow to the brain, it gives the body more oxygen, and also increases something called BDNF, which repairs and protects brain cells from degeneration. And so those things are really important for all of us. I wanted to talk a little bit about dancing though, because there was a study done on exercise, and this included many other activities: reading, bicycling, swimming, doing crosswords, playing golf, which is something else I really enjoy doing. But Stanford University stated that through their own study, that dancing does benefits or provides benefits as far as stress reduction, increased serotonin levels, with accompanying sense of well-being. It also states that frequent dancing apparently makes us smarter. And the major study adds to the growing evidence that stimulating one's mind by dancing can actually ward off Alzheimer's disease and other dementia as much or more so statistically as other forms of exercise. I feel that we have to look at the body as a whole. We're made up of 3 components: the body, the soul, which is our mind, will, and emotions, and our spiritual side. And I believe that if we ignore any one of those 3 areas, we're probably going to have a situation that affects the whole being. For example, if you ignore your body, many times you're going to end up not feeling as well emotionally, mentally. For example, if you ignore the fact, okay, I have issues or problems that I need to work on, as a counselor, I can tell you it's so important. You're the only one that can fix the problem that you might have. And a lot of times we like to blame someone else or not take responsibility. But normally in a relationship, there's 2 different opinions, there's 2 different viewpoints. And I urge people, even as I used to do marriage counseling, I would do individual counseling because it's true, we all have issues. But it does balance, it does cause an imbalance to the whole body. In that, we're connected. For spirituality, I realize not everyone is spiritual, but I will say from a personal point of view, when I had weakness in my body, which also related to have weakness in my thinking after the brain surgery, for example, it had a horrible impact. I leaned on God, and I had a spiritual part of me that pulled me through when the other 2 parts were really very weak. So I personally believe that all 3 areas are extremely important. Okay, when I'm breaking down my personal experiences and adding them to the process of writing, including my professional knowledge, I think professional knowledge is great, but I think personal experiences adds tremendously. People realize they're not alone in what they've been through, that you've also gone through things. So for me, it's just something that it seems to be that people really respond to the personal experiences. The knowledge, you can always read a book, you can always get more knowledge from what people say should happen or should be, but now your own experiences are totally different. And I will say I don't always agree with what books say, and all of us in psychology don't totally agree. So there's always going to be a certain amount of information which is really pure opinion. And usually the opinion has to do with what you've been through and your own experiences. Living a positive life in a negative world probably took me a little over a year to write, and it was a very difficult book to write. People asked me specifically to write the book because they saw how far I'd come in spite of the many difficulties, physically, emotionally, and even spiritually that I went through. But for me, I had to almost grieve those experiences. In other words, as I wrote the sad parts of the story and how I came through them, it wasn't really an easy book for me to write because I had to relive those experiences, but also the fact within a short period of time, I want to say a year and a half, I experienced the death of 2 loved ones, 2 people that were very close to me, and also my 18-year-old cat who was like a child. So that definitely was a time that I went through some setbacks, but thankfully we got the book finished. The time of day I write, normally I would say it's late morning to early afternoon. I like to get up, I like to have my quiet time, I like to go for my walk, and I like to have breakfast. But there have been mornings, and I can't explain this, but I'll wake up at 6 or 7 and I'll be ready to write. And so I'll be sitting at the table having my coffee, doing my quiet time, and at the same time writing. I think it's different for everyone, but it does change a little bit for me. The time I would say I do not write is late at night. I feel I'm tired and worn out, and that's a very bad time for me to write. As a person now, I've published 2 books. As a new person giving them advice, I'd say there's many options. It can be very confusing. Personally, my first book that I wrote, which was Supernatural Rescue, I had no idea what I was doing, but I went to a book writers meeting, and there was a publisher there, and they said, "We want your book." So they made it easy for me. They did a lot of things for me. I realized I spent more on that book, but having said that, I needed the help at the time. For people that want to take courses, you can take courses. I once did a course in self-publishing, but I will tell you, even though I'd already published a book, there were so many options that I ended up being more confused than really having answers. So you can do your own research. I recommend talking to other authors, maybe going to book writers' conventions, but realize there's many ways to publish a book. And so the more people you talk to, I would just really recommend, as a new author, you first of all journal. You start writing things down in a book. You write your thoughts down. You form them into an outline. But then maybe take your time before you choose how you're going to publish your book, because there are so many different options. Okay, I really believe that my book does resonate with many people. I've gotten tremendous feedback. But, you know, we are all dealing with problems and issues in our lives. And so having resilience, overcoming problems, I think we all need input from each other. Not just my book, but also, you know, I encourage people to read and to dialogue with other people. But because I've been through so many things myself, I think whether it's in body, soul, and spirit, you will find items in the book that will resonate with you in your own personal journey and give you tools to help you overcome issues that you may be dealing with. How do we find or make the choice to have positivity in a negative world? I laugh when I say read the book. Reading the book will help, but many times it's a choice and decision you make. I think some people have gotten in the habit of being negative and looking at their cup half empty. When you have a cup, you have a choice. Is it half full or half empty? You choose to look at it half full, you'll be more inclined to count your blessings and be thankful for what you do have in spite of what's going on around you. So I do believe it's a choice and a decision. If you want to be more positive, perhaps you need to change your way of thinking. I would say a primary message I would hope readers would take away is not to give up, no matter what you're going through. And not everybody maybe has been to a point they wanted to give up, but I speak to audiences where that resonates with people that I didn't know what to do, things were not working out, I didn't know what to do next. And so there's a temptation to give up. But I want to urge people not to, because there's more answers out there. Look for answers, read, go on the internet, do your own research, talk to other people. I have learned so much that I didn't know from talking to people on airplanes. I talked to an acupuncture doctor once having a treatment. She gave me so much information I didn't have, but it's important not to give up because there are tools, there are answers out there, and it's important to know you're not alone, even though you may feel alone at times. You can get Living a Positive Life in a Negative World on Amazon, or it's available at Barnes & Noble. Or you can contact me if you can't find it, and I'll make sure you get a copy. But I'm excited that it's become available, and I'm excited that it's selling so well, because I do believe there's tools in the book that will really help you through your walk in life. Okay, one thing I'd like to add, I'm really proud to be an author, but I love speaking for groups, and I've been speaking for groups for over 20 years. So I just wanted to let you know, if your group has an opening and would like a speaker, please let me know. If at all possible, I'd love to fill that opening in your schedule and offer people hope and encouragement. Not everybody reads books. A lot of us do more reading than others, but I find I can reach a bigger audience the more people I speak to as well. My website address is lindasPlunkett.com, and I'll spell that Lindas like Sue, Plunkett, P like Peter, LUNKETT.com.